Hello, and welcome back to my channel. I'm Dr. Judy, and in today's video, I'm going to be sharing with you about how to overcome fear. And before I get started, be sure to subscribe, like this video. It helps the channel to grow and more people subscribe, and when you like the video as well. I have been doing something a little bit different with my channel lately, whereby I record videos several days during the week. They're not edited, and I really don't even have much of a script. I have a few Bible verses, but I really just speak from my heart or as the Holy Spirit leads. So I just wanted to kind of share that. And I hope that you are inspired, blessed, and encouraged by the videos. My goal and my purpose primarily is to speak to the body of Christ, to believers, and to help us, you, all of us, to grow spiritually, to optimize health physically, mentally, and emotionally, to grow in faith, to grow closer to God, and to be better able to hear His voice. Those are some of the things that I'm very much interested in and have done a lot of personal study on those particular topics, as well as reducing stress. So today's video is about overcoming fear. Now, if you're alive, there's at some point where you're going to feel fearful about something, right? And so I'm going to share with you an example of when I had something happen to me and I was very scared. There was a snake in my garage. This was several months ago. And I don't like bugs. I don't like snakes. I don't like insects, rodents, like none of those things, right? I don't like anything creepy, crawly, or anything like that to be in my house, in my garage, or anything. And so I was coming out one day to put some trash into my dumpster, which is in my garage. And then I see this black snake in the corner in my garage. And I didn't know what to do. I go and get my neighbor. I was like, it's a snake in my garage. What to do? Thinking that he would know. And he came over with like a broom. I don't know what a broom was supposed to do, and was trying to sweep the snake out of my garage. Now, mind you, this snake is pretty big. It was black, probably about almost 6 feet, maybe 5 feet, maybe. But it was big. It wasn't like a small one. And I didn't know if it was poisonous or not, right? In my mind, I'm like, it could be poisonous. It could bite me. And I was thinking of patients that I've had who have been bitten by snakes and got infection in their arm or the leg. And the snake usually bit them very quickly, like they were in the garden or they were outside. And the snake bit them so quick that they didn't even really have a chance to like react or move their foot away from the snake. And the bite and the venom led to swelling and sometimes in some cases an infection, and they had to be hospitalized, right? So that's what I was thinking could happen from this snake in my garage. And I was like, how to get this snake out of my garage? So my neighbor didn't know what to do. And then I remembered a friend of mine had a snake in her garage once, and she called a snake removal company. I didn't even know that this existed before. So I get on Google and I look up snake removal companies in my area, and I found one. And thankfully, they were able to come out. Thankfully, they were able to come out like within the next hour. I was so grateful. And I want to show you the video that I took of the gentleman removing the snake from my garage that I was terrified of. So this is the snake removal expert guy holding up the snake, and it's a quick video. I'll show you. Don't mind my voice in the background. Oh my gosh. Oh my god, that thing is so big. Oh my god. Oh my goodness.
It's not too aggressive.
Yo, I got a snake in my garage. But the snake removal company came immediately. I'm so grateful. So that was the video of him removing it. I was so grateful, thankful for the experts. And I'm not about to play around with no snake. Although somebody could say that I could have taken one of those grabber things and did it myself, not gonna happen. But after that, I was so fearful of what if there's another snake in my garage? What if there's a snake in my car? What if there's like a family of snakes and the snake had gotten up inside my car? And what if I'm driving down the highway and then I see this snake at my foot and then I freak out and then I have an accident and then I crash my car and then I'm in the hospital because of this accident, right? So it was like one thought led to the next thought, and I'm going to explain to you how I was able to overcome that fear of that snake. And this could be applicable to anything that you are fearing in life. Now, this comes from speaking to my brother who was in the army, and he basically shared with me that the military, the army, basically are experts at fear management. Is what he says. They basically train you to function at a high capacity, to be able to think critically, think rationally, and to still be able to function in spite of fear. Because if you think about it, if you go into war, there's going to be bombs, grenades, shooting. Like they train them to still be able to perform at the highest level in spite of very rational fears. They could lose their life, in battle. And so he said, well, okay, what are you afraid of? So I was afraid that there was a snake in my car. And so to combat that concern, I asked the snake removal guy, what is the likelihood of there being other snakes in the garage? And he said, very, very low, because likely the snake was after the trash, which was right by the garage door. And those type of snakes, they're not poisonous. They don't really bite or bother people, and they roam solo. So there's very low chance of there being other snakes there. And I had him check, pick up some of the stuff in my garage because I had boxes. And he was like, no, there's no other snakes in here. And then for my concern about the snake being in my car, I called my dealership for my vehicle and asked, what are the chances that an animal could get up from the bottom of the vehicle into like the main seating area? And they said there's no chance of that happening because it's closed off. The interior is closed off from the exterior. So I was like, could they have gotten up through the exhaust? They was like, that's very unlikely. And usually, typically, by the time you turn your engine on, that heat is going to make them leave. So I turned on my car, turned on the engine, let it run for a little bit because I was like, okay, if there is a snake in there, he's going to come out with the engine being on. No snake came out. And then I also searched the car. I searched under the mats, just make sure there was no snake there. And that did it for me. Believe it or not, doing that same day really alleviated my fear that there was another snake in my car, that I was going to get in that I might get an accident if I saw another snake while I was driving. And so what I learned is that when it comes to fear, there are things that are probable, like likely to happen, and then there are things that are possible. And sometimes the thing that we are afraid of is what's possible, but it's not probable or it's not likely, right? So the chances of there being another snake in the garage, being in my car, me seeing it while I'm riding on the highway and getting into an accident, the probability of that is very low. Of course, it's possible, but the probability is very low. So the first thing when you're trying to overcome fear is to see if the thing that you're afraid of is that something that's possible, because technically anything is possible. Or a lot of things are possible. So is it something that's possible? And what's the probability of it? Like, is it a low probability of that thing happening? Because it could be that you're afraid of something that has like a 5% chance of happening. And then the second thing is, if you're afraid of something happening, what you could do is what I did, and that is go through the steps of, okay, so if there is a snake in my car, what would I do in that moment? If there's a snake in my exhaust, how would I get it out? So I turn my car on, right? And then I also visualize. I said, okay, if I'm driving and there's a snake in my car and I see it, what will I do? Okay, so I know that the snake's not poisonous. He's likely more afraid of me than I am afraid of him. He's likely not going to bite me. So I just have to talk to myself and tell myself that there's no need to suddenly pull over or stop the car. I can drive to a safe place and take the snake out the car, right? So visualizing and going through the scenario of the thing that you are afraid of can help lower your fear of that thing, because you start to see that, oh, I can overcome this fear. There are things that I can do that I can put in place so that if that worst case scenario does happen, I have a backup plan in place to cover me in the slight chance that that thing could happen. And I think what happens a lot of times is that people, when they become consumed with fear, they get stuck. So you could be afraid of starting a business because you're afraid of failure. You could be afraid of having a difficult conversation with your boss because you're concerned that it might not go well, or maybe you're wanting to ask for a raise and you're afraid to ask in case you're told no, or maybe you might feel like you might be embarrassed. Some people are afraid of public speaking because they're worried about what people will think about them and they're concerned. But I find going through those things of what's possible and what's probable, and then visualizing yourself in that situation, and then the thing that you are afraid of, logically thinking through how you can react if that thing were to happen, or how you can prevent that thing from happening. So let's say that you are very nervous and anxious when it comes to public speaking. So you can say, okay, what am I afraid of? I'm afraid of making a mistake. I'm afraid of saying the wrong thing. So then you can say, well, how can I safeguard against that? And you can prepare. You can over prepare, so to speak, right? You can have your notes. If you're worried about the PowerPoint going down, you can have index cards so that you are not dependent on the PowerPoint. You can also have your outline typed out. You can also have a complete transcript where you've practiced the whole speech like multiple times, and you can safeguard against these things happening that you are afraid of, rather than allowing yourself to become paralyzed with thoughts of, oh my goodness, if I do this speech and I mess up, I make a mistake, people are going to laugh at me. You can actually prepare so well so that the chances of that happening are very, very low. Probable versus possible. So that's one way to overcome fear. And then also visualizing yourself in that situation. So if public speaking is something that makes you feel nervous, visualize yourself on the stage giving a phenomenal speech, the audience going crazy, giving you a standing ovation, and get to the location early. And you can stand on the stage and visualize yourself doing that thing. A lot of times runners do this. Runners, especially I know that some of the sprinters do this. They visualize themselves winning the race and coming across the line in first place. So I find visualization to be very helpful to kind of overcoming some of those mental blocks or those fears that I might have. And since I'm a data driven person, another thing that you can do along the lines of, is this thing probable or just a possibility, is, let's say you're afraid of um, a hurricane. Let's say it's a storm coming and you're feeling very nervous and anxious. You could do a couple of things. You could look up in the past and see what percentage of hurricanes has led to damage of your house. Has your house been damaged before by hurricanes? And then you could look up, well, what can I do? Okay, I'm worried about my windows cracking from the wind. So maybe I can get shutters. So you might say, maybe I can get shutters to protect the windows and the glass so that it doesn't break. And then you can go and find out what else you can do. You know, if you're worried about running out of water during the storm, you can say, well, maybe I can get a water filter. I can stock up water. You know, so there are things that you can do with regards to what you might be afraid of, that you can overcome that fear so that you can still function, because fear is normal. It's normal to feel fear, but we shouldn't let it paralyze us. And I believe we shouldn't let us prevent it shouldn't prevent us from doing what we need to do, what we want to do, and what God has ordained us to do. Do you know what I mean? And if you're looking for encouragement, the Bible has a lot of verses about fear, and I'll read a few of them for you. 2 Timothy 1:7 says, for God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. Isaiah 41:10 says, fear not, for I am with you. Be not dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you. Yes, I will help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. And Psalm 56, 3 to 4 says, whenever I am afraid, I will trust in you. In God, I will praise his word. In God, I have put my trust. I will not fear. What can flesh do to me? And lastly, John 14:27 says, peace I leave with you. My peace I give to you. Not as the world gives, do I give to you. Let not your heart be troubled, neither let it be afraid. And I just thought of another example of how you can overcome fear and move forward in spite of fear and not let it paralyze your thoughts, your emotions, and your life. So, if you're feeling anxious right now with 2025 coming up, with Trump becoming the president, whatever you're afraid of, I encourage you, if you're afraid of something happening, like maybe you think that there's going to be a financial crisis, or maybe you think that there's going to be some a world war or tension racially, or something's going to happen to you and your family. Let's say you're worried about financial crisis, right? So you can start to prepare now to safeguard. I'm one that likes to take action. I'm not a big talker about problems or issues. I tend to be very action oriented. So what I would do to overcome this fear would be, okay, finances. Do an assessment of your finances. Start looking at alternative ways to generate income outside your employer. If you're worried about potentially being laid off or fired for without cause, start looking at other ways that you can generate income, whether it's, a side business, a stock market, or real estate. Start looking at other ways to generate income. If you're worried about potential like civil unrest, there are people that call themselves preppers. There's actually so many YouTube videos about this. They actually are people who are preparing for when anything hits the fan, basically. And they have food stocked up, they have generators, water filters, they have gas stoves, canned food, and cans and supplies and food to last them for months. One person I saw on YouTube, she has like a year of food stocked up for her family in like a room in their house. And so they are prepared to not rely on the government for anything. If the electricity goes down, if the internet goes down, if the gas, water goes down, they are prepared. So these are some things that you can do. And there are people that have been planning for a potential catastrophe, whether it's a hurricane, civil unrest, government turning off the electricity or the power. Like there are people that are planning for this. So you can actually start planning now. And the videos on YouTube, they're called homesteaders or preppers. It's very interesting and fascinating. They're like, if anything happens in this country, I am going to be ready. It's very, very fascinating. So there are things that you can do to minimize the fear that you feel so that you're not paralyzed, so that you have a plan in place in the event that that thing that you're worried about actually does take place. And it's my opinion that a lot of times the things that we are afraid of are unlikely to take place. They're possible, but many times they're unlikely to take place, or the likelihood of that thing taking place is very low. But like I shared, there are things that you can do to safeguard and help yourself to be able to overcome that fear. And like I say, if you're worried about everything going crazy in the world, these people that are preppers, they are not worried about that because they're like, I got a plan in place. I have this, I have food, I have water, I have a generator. So they're like, I'm ready for whatever happens. And that's what I think is one way that we can kind of overcome fear is by being prepared or having a backup plan in place, right? Because if you don't have a plan, you're going to be like, oh, well, if the electricity goes down or there's a hurricane and I don't have water, I don't have electricity, I'm not going to be able to survive. So that's how I overcame my fear of the snake. Hopefully that's helpful for you. No matter what you're afraid of, God cares, He loves you. And it's okay to be afraid of things from time to time. We all are afraid of things from time to time, but we shouldn't let it paralyze us. We shouldn't let it overtake our thoughts and our emotions. And I also find it helpful to be careful of how much we are fueling that fear by continually to talk about that thing, right? So if you're worried about a storm and a hurricane coming, it's not helpful to keep talking about, oh my goodness, a storm is coming. My house could um, be destroyed in a tornado. The windows could crack in the wind, and then the house could get flooded. And then there could be an earthquake. And then my power could go out. And then I could be without food and water. Like, it doesn't help to keep thinking about those worst case scenarios. And I think it's more productive to move towards preparation, like how to prepare. And so I want to leave that word with you for the remainder of this year is preparation. For whatever is to come in 2025, whatever it is that you're afraid of, you are worried about, you're anxious about, this is the time when you can prepare for the future. And I also want to leave with you that trust in God. His plans are better than ours. He knows the plans He has for us. He has plans for us to prosper, and He wants us to be at peace. He doesn't want us to be stressed out, miserable, broke, and unhappy. So, we as believers, I think, could do better about bringing our burdens to God, bringing those concerns to Him instead of spending as much time talking between each other, posting on social media, and complaining or venting or expressing nervousness, anxiousness, but take it to God, whether it be in prayer or journaling, and allow His peace to comfort you and to reassure you that everything is going to be okay. You've gotten this far in life. Do you really think that God is going to let you hang out to dry right now at this point? It's like the Israelites, God rescued them out of Egypt. And every 2 seconds, it seemed like they were doubting whether He was even on their side, doubting whether He was going to provide. And they were complaining a lot. This is not the spirit that we want to adopt, this complaining spirit, as well as this doubtful spirit whereby we don't trust God. We don't trust God to provide and to take care of us. So I just wanted to leave that with you because I do believe that this anxiety and fear is more so of the devil, the enemy, because it steals your joy. If you think about it, it steals your joy, it steals your peace. And then you start to question God because you're like, God, are you there for me? Are you going to have my back? Or do I need to do this, that, and the other? So I can't leave out the part about trusting in God in everything, in all things, in your marriage, your job, your relationships, the future, and commit your ways and your plans to Him because He loves you and He loves you more than you even know. Believe you me. And there is nothing that anyone could tell me to make me think that God is not real, that He doesn't love His children tremendously, and that He is not actively involved in each of our lives on a day to day basis. God is not passively in heaven just watching things happen on this earth. He actually is active, way more active than people think. And I know this personally because sometimes God will reveal to me something about someone else. It could be something that they're struggling with, and He would implore me to pray with them. And I get woken up sometimes at 3 in the morning to pray for people. Or God would say, send this to this person. This person is going through this, and I will send them that. Or I will give a word to someone when I see them. So God has people that He is speaking to provide for you what you may need in your time of need, if that makes sense. And yeah, he's very much real. If there's one thing that you're gonna get from this channel is faith. That's really the big purpose of this whole thing, I think, to increase people's faith in the fact that God is real. He speaks to us all the time. He's actively involved in each and every one of our lives, and He wants what's best for you. And so let that be an encouraging message to you that no matter what you're going through today, this week, no matter what you're worried about for 2025, I don't believe that we have any reason to fear or be excessively worried about the future because I do believe that it is in God's hands. And this is what trust and faith is, it is believing without sight. So things may look very dim to you right now. It may look like it's going to be a hot mess in 2025. But that's what faith is, believing in something despite there being no evidence of that thing. And so it could be right now that your faith is being tested. Do you trust God? Is your faith strong enough in God to trust that His plans is sovereign, that He knows what's best for you, even more than you know for yourself, and that He will carry you through no matter what storm is going to come? And I do believe that we are in the last days. I don't know how long the last days are going to last, but I do know that the Bible does talk about difficult times coming. And so it would benefit us as believers to work on overcoming fear, increasing our resiliency, increasing our faith and trust in God, and developing a close, intimate relationship with God, whereby you walk with Him and you know His voice and you are like best friends, right? The Bible talks about the church being the bride and God or Jesus being the groom, like a marriage. It's a beautiful reason why that analogy is used, right? Like a man and a woman, when they come together, they are one, similar in purpose, united, and on a united front. That's what God wants, God and the church to come together. And so that's all that I have for you today. Comment below. I'd love to know your thoughts on this video. Like this video, subscribe, and then also, I can't forget, next week is our next corporate fast. We host a fast now the first Monday to Wednesday of every month. I am a big believer in fasting. It literally changes your spiritual life. If you're not fasting, you're significantly missing out on an opportunity to grow spiritually and to grow in faith and to depend on God. And so the website is drjudymd.com. That's my website. And you can sign up there and I'll put the link in the comments. I hope that you join us. It's going to be amazing. Fasting, the biblical definition of fasting is abstaining from food. So we'll be abstaining from food from 6 a.m. to 3 p.m. each day. And then we'll meet on Zoom in the evening at 7 p.m. And I'll also be streaming it to my YouTube channel so that you can watch here. It's going to be amazing. It's no experience like fasting, just denying yourself from eating food. It helps you to develop discipline and self control, like in every area of life. And it helps you to depend on God and realize that God is really all that you need. Really, He's all that you need. So that's all for today. And I will see you in the next video and be blessed. Take care.